FFT Waiver Wire presented by Snickers. Rookie mistake? Maybe you just need a Snickers. Oh, let's see who the guys say to go out and get. Achane's on top. Jamie, Dave, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Feel better, my friend. We're taking a look at, obviously, the players that you're looking to help improve your roster, Dave. And let's start with the quarterbacks here because, I mean, look, it's been ugly in some situations when you're talking Justin Fields and his struggles and Joe Burrow not looking like himself and Dak Prescott not looking like himself and a lot of guys that we were expecting to be starters. Maybe there's somebody we could find here. And let's show you the quarterbacks that we're looking to add for this week after we show you the injuries, as we always do, with the guys who are a little bit banged up right now. So Richardson's dealing with the concussion. Hopefully he plays in week number 4. Colts have a pretty easy matchup, I think, against the Rams based on what we've seen. Derek Carr is going to be week to week. Bryce Young not expected to play in week 4. Garoppolo's in the concussion protocol, and it might not be a bad time to be stashing Kyler Murray with the Cardinals playing better than a lot of people hoped. All right, now the guys that we're looking to add here, and the highlight player, for me at least, is CJ Stroud, who's been very good the last 2 weeks. And the nice thing about it is, against the Jaguars, he had been sacked 11 times, did not get sacked once. So maybe the offensive line is showing some signs of life, but the receiving core is great. So Dave, does CJ Stroud have the potential, as early as week 4 against the Steelers, to be a #1 fantasy quarterback?
I wouldn't put him that high that soon, but you want to get this guy on your bench if you've got a quarterback issue in your fantasy league. I believe he's given you at least 20 fantasy points in each of his first 3 games. It's certainly the last 2, like you said. And I love the fact that he's averaging at least 40 pass attempts per game. He's completing almost 65% of his throws, 7.5 yards per attempt. The metrics are in his favor. He just needs more touchdowns. And once that offensive line gets healthier, you mentioned it, they're starting to play a little bit better. Once it gets even healthier, he's going to be off to the races. So this is a good quarterback that's available for the rest of the season. The other quarterbacks that were on their list, I like them for week number 4. But to me, Stroud, rest of season, head and shoulders above the rest.
All right, you say you like them for week number 4. Who do you like better? Because Jameis Winston's get the revenge game against his former team in Tampa Bay. He's at home. And Andy Dalton's coming off a very impressive performance at Seattle. He gets a great matchup against Minnesota.
I think I like Dalton a little bit better. I think his floor's a little bit higher in that matchup against Minnesota. It's so good. And so Dalton's the one that I would lean toward. I wouldn't hate you if you said Jameis, because Jameis does have some great pass catchers, and that Bucs defense did look pretty rough through the air last week. So I'm going to lean toward Dalton. It's a very close call between the 2 of these veterans.
The plus for Jameis is you can use him for a few weeks, especially if we're talking super flex or 2 quarterback leagues, because, again, Derek Carr is week to week. But Dalton, I think, for a 1-week situation, if you just tell me he's definitely starting because we don't know, Bryce Young may return, then Dalton would be the better player for me. And the guys you can move on from, Derek Carr is easy because he's week to week and he's been disappointing. Matthew Stafford, it's over basically 2+ seasons because he's missed a lot of time, but it's now been 16 games going back to 2021. Only twice has he gone over 20 fantasy points in that span, so not getting the job done despite a very impressive receiving core. Let's move on to the running backs here, and here are the running backs that are dealing with injuries. We hope to have a few of these guys back. Aaron Jones could play in week 4. Eckler could play in week 4. Barkley could play in week 4. Montgomery could play in week 4. We'll see what the Ravens do at the running back position. And let's just keep Jeff Wilson and Savon Ahmed away from the guy we're going to talk about now, because he was very special, and that's Achane, who is saying his name is pronounced differently after a monster performance against the Broncos. You know what? We'll call you whatever you want if you continue to put up over 200 total yards and 4 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon, Jerick McKinnon, look, these guys aren't exactly very exciting. It's really just the headliner at the top there in Achane. So, Dave, he's playing behind a 31-year-old running back. He's playing on arguably the most explosive offense in the NFL right now. And he just showed you that he could be a top 5 running back because his 51 PPR points vaulted him into the top 5 already. You know his number 2? It's Raheem Mostert. So both these guys are producing at a very high level.
And you're going to continue to start Raheem Mostert, that's obvious, and you're going to make a beeline for Achane. I was asked before I came in here, do I get Achane or do I get Tank Dell? And we'll talk about Dell a little bit later, but to me it's a no-brainer that it's Achane, just because he's playing this valuable position that's really underwhelmed this season in fantasy. Finding good running backs, hard to do. And so here's one that's going to come off the waiver wire in half of CBS Sports leagues, who has potential. I don't know if he's going to be even 15 PPR points per week, Jamie. I'm a little bit worried about people overvaluing him based on what happened in week 3, but I think he's still going to get around 10 touches per week as long as Raheem Mostert's healthy. And then if Mostert misses time, you're going to see that vault to 15. He's a talented player. So going after him with your top waiver claim, with a lot of your fab, makes a lot of sense.
See, that's the part, though, that I think is important here. You say you don't know if you can get to 15 PPR points a game if Mostert's healthy. If Mostert misses time and Jeff Wilson can't return in Week 5, the starting running back for the Dolphins, again, right now is number 2 in fantasy points. Prior to last week, had a 100-yard, 2-touchdown game in Week 2 against the Patriots. Scored 3 touchdowns in the first 2 games. This position has been very productive by itself. Now you have these 2 guys competing a little bit, which could be an issue. But again, if one guy is there, and if it is Achane, then that could be a special talent. So you got to spend.
Big if, though. We're assuming that guy's going to miss time.
We're assuming a 31-year-old running back with an injury history is going to miss time. There's probably a better bet that that's going to happen.
Immediately in Week 5? I don't know if that's.
I don't know immediately in Week 5.
Could happen later on, but that's the whole point. Is that you're getting Achane just for later on in the year. Put it this way: what are the odds that Raheem Mostert stays healthy all year long?
Very slim.
I agree, and that's why Achane makes so much sense as the top waiver claim.
And spend all your fab if you have to get him. If your running back situation is not necessarily helping you out. To get ahead of some of these situations, we don't want to, see injuries for any of these guys that these guys are backing up. But look, Sean Tucker may get some more opportunities if Rachaad White continues to struggle. Latavius Murray has scored a touchdown each of the last 2 games. He's the backup ahead of Damian Harris in Buffalo. Zamir White behind a struggling Josh Jacobs. Rico Dowdle would be a star potentially from a fantasy perspective if Tony Pollard missed any time. Keontae Ingram would probably get a lot of work. Ronnie Rivers get a lot of work. Maybe Jaleel McLaughlin. Same thing. So deeper leagues, these are running backs you want to stash. And the guys that you could be moving on from, Dalvin Cook. Oh boy, the Jets are just really, really bad right now. Antonio Gibson. The Commanders coming off a bad game, and he's not producing. Rashad Penny gets to watch 2 other guys produce in Philadelphia. Tony Jones, Damian Harris. I think their time is up and is necessarily being used for fantasy managers. Dave, any of these guys you'd be holding on to?
I don't think so. You can't really make the case. Dalvin Cook could be the worst player on your bench. You'd absolutely get rid of him to get a shot at Achane.
Let's take a look at the wide receivers now and the injuries at this position. We lost a prominent player in Mike Williams, who's out for the season with a torn ACL. We hope to get both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk on the field for this week. One dealing with a rib injury, the other dealing with shoulder injury. Ayuk missed the Week 3 game against the Giants. Hopefully he is back again. Same thing with Jalen Waddle. Christian Watson hoping to make his debut for the 2023 season in Week 4. Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, we're going to lose them for still a couple more weeks. Kupp comes back after Week 4, and we don't know about the Ravens guys in Beckham and Bateman. Here are the guys to add. This is the position where it has a little bit more juice. And Tank Dell is coming off a great 2 games last 2 weeks. Actually, when you search for him, just make sure you're searching for Nathaniel Dell on our site on CBS Sports. But we're going to tell you that he's a star in the making. The Charger situation we'll get into as well. And then some other guys, just because we're not going to touch on them, some deeper league options. DJ Chark coming off a strong game. 1 week scenario could use him as number 3 receiver. Marvin Mims, great stash candidate. Wan'Dale Robinson played 11 snaps. He got 5 targets in those 11 snaps. He's going to be the best Giants receiver moving forward. Jaden Reed, Raji Rice, Josh Downs, all rookies you want to stash if you can. And Michael Gallup might be the 2nd best receiver in Dallas, aside from CeeDee Lamb. But Dave, let's talk about Nathaniel Tank Dell, who had 2 big games the last 2 weeks. And last week was better than Nico Collins for the first time. Who's the best receiver for the Texans, and can you trust Tank Dell moving forward?
I'm a big fan of Nico Collins, so it's hard for me to put Tank Dell ahead of him after just the last 2 weeks for Dell. So I'm still going to say Nico Collins, but we talked about this with the running backs. You want to take a look at the top 12 right now on a per-game basis in half PPR? Tank Dell's 12th. Among wide receivers. It's amazing. And so he's got upside because of his speed, because he's in an offense that's throwing the ball over 40 times a game, and because this is a quarterback that he's got in C.J. Stroud, who's actually pretty good. And I think Dell has room to get better. If you watch his routes in the short area, it looks like he's thinking a little bit when he plays. Once he overcomes that and it all comes naturally to him, he could be absolutely dynamic. And at that point, I might have to succumb to answering the question Dell ahead of Collins. But he is the number 2 guy to go get off the waiver wire this week.
And again, probably going to cost you if you need some help at the wide receiver position, so don't be afraid to spend 15 to 20% of your original fab budget. And he's just, again, the guy that C.J. Stroud is leaning on right now. So Keenan Allen's the guy that Justin Herbert's leaning on, but the second guy was Mike Williams, and again, he's out for the season with the torn ACL. So we're getting the question now, who should it be? Should it be Josh Palmer as the player to add, or should it be Quentin Johnston, who was their first-round rookie? So Dave, I think the way to approach this is if you need somebody in the short term, it's Palmer. If you need somebody long term, it's Quentin Johnston, because right now he's just not playing very much. That's clearly going to change, but he's been under 27% of the snaps in each of the first 3 weeks. Palmer's been 57% of the snaps or more each of the first 3 weeks, and he's coming off Interesting game. He got a touchdown, but it was off a tip ball. It probably should have been an interception from Justin Herbert. But in any event, how do you view the replacements for Mike Williams?
Let me tell you what Josh Palmer has going for him. He's experienced. He's been in this offense for a while, or at least he's familiar with the quarterback. And in 6 career games in which Mike Williams was either out or barely played, he gave you at least 12 PPR points in 4 of them. 3 of them, he was well past 15 PPR points. So that's something that fantasy managers can feel good about, but I don't think he's particularly special compared to Quentin Johnson. I think Johnson's bigger. That's fact. He's definitely faster. He just needs to make his way in the NFL for a little bit. So I agree. If you need somebody for the second half of the year, I bet Quentin Johnson's going to be that guy. But if you need wide receiver help right now and you can't get your cloppies on Tank Dell, Palmer's who to go after.
Another guy that might be able to help you is Elijah Moore, who's had 3 straight games with 7 or more targets, coming off a game where he caught all 9 of his targets last week. And really right now we have to see how this Browns offense is going to operate, because they were a little bit more pass happy in week 3 against the Titans than they were in terms of using their ground game, and we know that there is no more Nick Chubb for the rest of the season. So while he's not producing a lot, and he did have a fumble in this game, which is why you see only 11 PPR points, you got to love the attention. So Elijah Moore, still available in just about 40% of leagues on CBSSports.com. Go get him if you need a number 3 wide receiver. The wide receivers to move on from: Brandon Cooks, again getting outplayed by Michael Gallup. Kadarius Toney just not producing in the first 3 weeks of the season. Beckham banged up. Juju Smith-Schuster getting outplayed by Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne. Who would have thought that would ever happen? And Darnell Mooney, 2 straight games with no catches. He's dealing with a knee injury, but only 1 target in the loss against the Chiefs. The tight ends that we're looking at here, the injuries, not a lot of prominent guys here. Greg Dulcich on IR. Irv Smith missed the game Monday night. Logan Thomas has gotten some attention from his quarterback in Sam Howell, but not somebody that's going to be rostered in the majority of leagues. And here are the guys to add: Jake Ferguson, Gerald Everett, and Luke Musgrave. Everett, if you're talking about getting a boost without Mike Williams there. He just had 6 catches against the Vikings, so we'll see if that carries over week to week. But Jake Ferguson, Dave, is somebody that I'm intrigued about because he now has 2 games with 7 targets. We've seen this Cowboys offense really not have to do very much through 2 of the first 3 games. And then last week he had his most productive outing, 5 catches, 48 yards. I think with the way Michael Gallup has struggled for 2 of the 3 games, Brandon Cooks has struggled for the 3 games, he could be the second best pass catcher for the Cowboys moving forward, and we know Dak Prescott likes to lean on his tight ends.
He's the Dalton Schultz of 2023. It's as simple as that. You remember Dalton Schultz as a red zone weapon for the Cowboys. Dak would lean on him down there. I would expect that to be the case. Ferguson's certainly not a bad tight end to go after. I do like Musgrave better. I think he's got a little bit more upside in that Green Bay offense. I know that Christian Watson's coming back. Musgrave, to me, a little bit more juice in the way that he plays. Opportunity to get almost as many, if not as many targets as Jake Ferguson on a week-to-week basis. I would lean toward him ahead of Ferguson.
I would not be surprised if he's better, but I just wonder about the target crunch that's going to happen when Watson's there, and Dobbs and Reed and Aaron Jones. He could really be 4th in terms of opportunities, and this was his best game again without Christian Watson on the field. Hard to move on from David Njoku, but I think it's time to do so, and the same thing with guys like Tyler Higbee and Dalton Schultz, although Higbee did look good Monday night against the Bengals, just not producing overall through the first 3 games of the season. We're going to take a break right now, but make sure you check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast. Wherever podcasts are available, we help you with all of your fantasy needs. Again, wherever podcasts are found, the Fantasy Football Today podcast.